Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Bliss Bakery, where you'll get your wholesome slice of life. I'm Rachel.
And I'm JinJin.
So JinJin and I actually met at uni back in first year, and we both were studying under the business school. And JinJin then went on to become a graduate at PwC.
Yes.
And then recently has taken a much more interesting life kind of change. And so I wanted to pull JinJin in today because I wanted to talk about the career changes and those experiences that you have in your 20s where you do start really thinking about what do you actually do next in your life.
Yes.
Do you want to give a quick intro of yourself, JinJin?
Yes. Yes, kind of what Rachel said, we met in university. My first full-time role out of university was at PwC. I was in the audit section, and I think I've known for quite a while that audit wasn't really for me, but I immersed myself a lot into it, and I've gained so many experiences. I wouldn't be who I am today without that experience. But I think, last year in particular was a bit too much for me, and I was really thinking about what I wanted to do. I changed to doing nannying, and then at the same time working on social media content creating, because I've been doing that just as a side hobby, but I wanted to make it more serious.
Super interesting because I guess I'm feeling it as well. You've been in your first career or your first job for a couple of years now. You've probably gotten over the novelty of being a grad and being in the workforce. And then you've started to really get comfortable and start becoming this senior in the workplace.
Yeah.
And that's where you start thinking, is this really what I want to do?
So true.
Right?
Yeah.
And were those the thoughts that you were starting to have? I guess let's talk through just your journey overall. I know you gave a bit of an intro there, but let's start all the way back in uni, I suppose, why you chose to study business in the first place.
Yes. That one's a very interesting question because when I first started out, after high school, my thoughts were going to be a teacher or a psychologist because I think I just liked helping people. So I did actually go to University of Sydney first, so to a different university, and I did primary education for one semester. Yeah, but I really didn't like it. I think one was because I didn't like the studies that I was doing. I think the people there, I think I met a lot more at a different university and made so many more connections. I didn't want to waste my university life missing out on that and developing those friendships. And then I've been hearing all the society work that they've been doing there. And I felt that's why I made the move to business. I would have never considered business if it wasn't for the friends that I met.
Ah.
Yeah.
So one of your big reasons for your career, choosing your career, was people.
Yeah, I think I was always a people's person, always helping out or, So it was very different. I don't know. I think even in high school, my friendship circle, I don't think any of them went into the business world either. So I think that's why it never came across my mind until I was surrounded by those friendship circles in university. I think that's why I made the change. And I've actually loved it a lot more because I feel like I've learned more life skills in terms of, finances. And I just wouldn't have learned any of this if I did primary school education. Yeah.
So it turned out all well in the end. Yeah. A lot of students go into business from, studying high school. And then it is this almost fallback of, I don't know what to do, so I'll just choose this and try and figure out where I go next. For you, what was that journey then from being in, studying business to then ending up in PwC?
So when I think about this, honestly, again, it's always the people that you surround yourself with. I think the friendship circle I had at university when I was studying business was very internships and societies. And so I remember in my penultimate year, everyone was applying for internships. And I was like, oh my gosh, maybe I need to be applying for that.
Yeah.
So I started doing it. I never even heard of the big four companies either until, our friends were applying for it. And I was like, oh, okay, I might as well try, just get some interview experience. And then, I think half of it, like my application was like half audit because I don't know. I think maybe because like people were doing it, they said that you learned a lot from it. And then the other half was like more like human capital work. And I think that would have probably been more aligned to my interests. But unfortunately, I didn't, if I would reach the final stage of the interviews, but just like never made it across. So yeah, I think, and then like with audit as well, when I did my internship, I really enjoyed it. Like I learned a lot and my team was so great. And I was like, oh, you know what? I could probably see myself here. But I think in that time period, I had like a year before I started full-time work. I was like, oh, you know what? Like I'll just try this as my grad role. I think I wasn't too certain. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but because I had a good internship experience, I was like, I'll just come back and continue with it. Yeah.
I feel like there's both a positive side of that and then the like you didn't really go into what you were sure you wanted to do, which is also fine because we change careers all the time as well and we're learning as we go. But it was nice that you were able to discover something that you enjoyed, but also because of the people around you that helped you discover it and then kind of fall into that for the first couple of years. I think that was similar, I suppose, with me around when I went into uni. I always wanted to do tech. Like I went to some site visit when I was in year 12 to Atlassian and I was like, I want to work here. And then along the way, I think it was similar where I was surrounded by people who were really just in that business bubble and everyone wanted to go into consulting and everyone wanted to go into like a big four. And for me, I think in third year was probably where I lost my way the most, where I actually, because people were talking about it all the time, and I think it was Jonathan Canasti actually who sent me out of nowhere this program for McKinsey, and he was like, you should apply for this. And I also I didn't know what MBB was. I was like, okay, I'll just apply for that because I think it was like women in leadership. And I was like, I'm a woman and I'm a leader. And that's also similar to you. Like it was the people around me that really shifted my path into where I ended up in a career.
Yes.
And my story didn't turn out as well as yours, but I think it is interesting how when you're in uni that those people that you surround yourself with are such a big influence.
Because honestly, when I reflect back at university, I think the direct circle around me applied for audit. And so that's why I was like, you know what, maybe I'll go for audit. But I think deep down, I always knew like marketing or management because I did study that at university as some of my courses. I felt like I was more interested in that, but I didn't know too many people. And I think back then I was too, I don't know, not like shy, I guess, or like not confident enough to like approach those people and say like, hey, you know, like join the societies or whatnot. Yeah. I felt like they were so established. That was just really hard to get into their circle. So yeah, I think in hindsight though, if there was something deep down I wanted to do, I should have just gone for it and just tried regardless. Right. But in saying so, like I don't regret any of my decisions or how, I come across now.
Yeah. And I think you spent, how many years did you spend in PwC?
Almost 3 years.
Yeah. So I guess in perspective, that's not a really long amount of time. Yeah. So you were able to go through something and learn from it, and it's not like you've wasted a bunch of, like you've got heaps of time. Yes. So there's no regret there, right?
No, yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, that's what I've realized as well. I think because at PwC, like so many people come from different walks of life. Like people have moved to Australia for the first time, but they're like in their 30s, but being an associate or something, you know, it really puts things into perspective that it's never too late to do anything that you want to do. You know, it's kind of like this, I think, it's like there's a conventional path that everyone goes for, but you like go all the way to like manager and partner and whatnot at a company. But, you know, if you want to try other things or like somewhere down the track, it's okay to do so. Yeah.
As part of that, I think it also shows that people are just like at all sorts of points in their life. You could be 1 year into your job and be thinking about, hey, I want to do something different that I've always wanted to do. So this sort of stuff happens all the time. So you are mid late 20s now, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. We won't reveal your age. But at this point in your life, I guess, or when you were deciding to leave your corporate career, what was going through your mind?
I think in corporate, like the first year is pretty nice, right? Everyone's like, oh, don't worry, like you're just learning and you just take it chill, take your time. So the first year was pretty fun, I would say. Like I didn't put too much pressure on myself. I think the second year is like when it was a bit more difficult because you are trying to become like an acting senior. I think that's how how PwC was. So it was more stressful because there's more responsibilities. And I think I felt like a massive like imposter syndrome only because like I actually didn't study accounting at university. Like I didn't major in it. So like to be an acting senior and not have like studied the foundations was really difficult to wrap my head around. And it also made me think like, oh, how am I supposed to coach associates coming in as well? Like, yes, I know how to do the work and I've been getting good feedback and managers like appreciated me. But I think that was quite difficult mentally. Like, yes, I could have like gone through the qualifications and everything, but I think I just knew accounting wasn't really what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. In the corporate environment as well, it's quite demanding. Like it really depends on the teams that you're in. Some teams I was like grateful for and they're like really nice, but some of them are quite tough on you. And that's also really hard. And I think over time, like because I didn't want to be in this path, and then sometimes when I have like not so great teams, it was just very like mentally challenging. And yeah, it was literally end of 2022. I was ready to quit, but I was like very emotional about it. And like I let my team leader know and let my managers know, but I also knew in the next year we had like my most busiest period. So I just decided to stay for a few more months just to help out the team and then wrap it up. Yeah.
It's kind of interesting how maybe we're similar and maybe this is a cultural thing, but when we feel so much devotion to a job.
I know.
Where you don't want to trouble them or if you decide to leave, it's not... There's a lot of people who would just be like, you know what, I'm just going to leave and whatever is your business, like deal with it.
It's your problem. Yeah.
But... similar for me, I'm like, I want to make sure the team's in a good space and they're well set up to keep going even if I'm leaving.
Literally me, like leading up to when I was like thinking that I was going to quit, I like full on set up like a document, write down all my notes so that I could just share it to the associates, be like, you're in good hands. You don't have to bother the manager too much just because like, yeah, I just wanted to make sure everything was okay. Yeah, it's so true.
I think it's a good trait.
Yeah.
I'm also actually making a career change. Well, not really a career change so much, but a job change.
Yeah.
And for me, that feels like a big deal because I've been at my company now for about 4.5 years and I've been so comfortable and I feel like I've built a really good reputation and, you know, I'm confident now. And then suddenly I'm going somewhere else. And when I was making that change or the decision to make the change, I kept getting through LinkedIn, through TikTok and like Instagram, all these just posts that felt super relevant to me. Like the algorithm found me.
Yeah.
And I remember one that was talking about how when people hit the age of around like 27, that's when they it gave stats. It was like 80% of people start thinking about making a change in their careers. But in reality, only like 2% actually end up doing it.
Yeah.
And the thing that really helped me push over the edge, I think, in that post was because it talked about how when those people when you talk to those people when they're like 50 or whatever, they will look back at that moment as one of the most like defining points in their lives.
Yeah.
And if they had made the decision, it's kind of like, I'm really glad I did. And for a lot of people, if they were thinking about it and they decided not to make that decision, it's like a bit of regret there of what if I had done that thing.
Yeah.
I think it goes to show though that making a kind of decision like this is a big deal when you're feeling confident in your career. And so for you, how did you I know like you would have had those thoughts, but how did you really just like stick to it and commit?
Oh, that's a good question. Because I think for me, like I was a bit of an unfortunate circumstance. Like I was about to move into a different company, but because of all their layoffs, unfortunately my role got removed. But I was not, I think my main reason was I definitely didn't want to stay in the corporate environment any longer. I think like mentally I definitely needed a break. And I know I could have just taken like, I don't know, like a month off or something. But I thought like I didn't want to go back and I didn't want to stay in that environment. Like I could have maybe moved internally, but I just know that within PwC, for example, if you did want to move internally, you need to stay for at least a year just to like wrap things up before you second to another team or transfer.
Yep.
But I think all those things considered, I just, didn't want to stay in the corporate environment. I think it's just not me.
That's really interesting because did you feel that from the beginning? Like when you first joined, you always had a little bit of a feeling inside of like, this is probably not what I want to do.
Yeah. I think that was probably because I was younger and it was my first job, I was kind of like, I'll just go for it and see how it goes. And I think back then I was too afraid to change it or find something new. And I think just because of like how busy the work was, and how mentally draining it was, I think it was just like a light bulb moment going like, I just have to like really wrap this up because it's not, at that point in time, it was just, I was no longer learning and growing. It was just more, negatively affecting me. And I think if that's the case, then you really should like move on. And I think like from then once I quit, like I didn't have anything lined up. So it's pretty big, risky move. But I thought, I worked so hard for the past 3 years, kind of for nothing in a way, because I'm not like continuing on in that role or things like that. But I think for me, like personally, I grew a lot, like professionally, but also personally, realizing things like I really didn't have to like kill myself over a job, for example, and like knowing work boundaries.
I think it's a case of when you know. And you always kind of know from the beginning. Because similarly, in my first week of consulting, I knew. I was like, one of the people who were helping us during training week, who also helped with hiring, was like, we don't make mistakes in interviewing. And because I was really questioning, I was like, what if I wasn't meant to be here? And he was like, 99.5% of the time, or 99.95% of the time, we don't make a mistake. Like, you are capable. And I was like, but what if I'm the 0.05%? Because I just had that feeling as well. Like I felt different. Like my heart was really not in it. And I think that just grows over time, right? And like you said, what was the moment though? Because you said there was a light bulb, right? Was it a feeling of, were you feeling burnt out? Were you just feeling like what am I doing?
I think it was a mixture of like burnt out, knowing that audit wasn't the one for me. Like that was from the very beginning. But also at the same time, again, it's like the people. I think I stayed longer because of the people that I was working with and like the associates that I was coaching, for example. Like I wanted to make sure that they were not going through what I went through in my first year, like mentally. Like it might not be any manager or senior associates putting that on you, but it's just kind of like you versus you, and putting that pressure, unnecessary pressure on yourself that you didn't have to because no one else was doing it. But I think you just want to do the best that you can. And because everyone's just so talented and just doing their best, you just, then therefore you would want to do the same. But if you didn't do that well, it doesn't mean that, you're a failure or anything. It's just, I don't know, I guess people, there's just, we're average in comparison to the outperforming people. Yeah. I think at the same time, seeing my managers and seniors, they didn't seem happy as well, was kind of also a big sign. Like, it just is, in particular of the busy seasons, which is hard to but I think like throughout the whole year, it's busy all year round most of the times, depending on what jobs you are. But I think just seeing how unhappy they are in comparison to their normal self as well is a bit like, yeah, it's like I didn't want to have that.
You didn't want to become that.
Yeah.
I think it is really important though that how you said you went through something that you didn't enjoy that much, so you wanted to make sure passing it on to others, like they wouldn't have that same experience. I think it is so important to have those experiences because then it helps you in terms of empathy and how you treat other people as well.
Yeah.
So I think that's special.
Yeah.
What are you doing now then?
What am I doing now? So at the moment I went to my roots. You know how I mentioned that I've always thought of being a teacher. So I was like, you know what, maybe I'll look into that pathway and see if this is something that I wanted to do. So I just applied for a casual role just to get some money. And that was fun. And I also did nannying, and that's been like really great because I think it's been teaching me a lot about like inner child and everything, because I think I was definitely too harsh on myself in the corporate environment. And then like just working with kids, like you would never say those things, like whatever negative talk that you have to yourself, you would never do that to a child, right? So just like whenever they're going through a tantrum or emotional stage or something, like just being patient with them, being kind. I think through that experience, I learned a lot not to do that to myself.
That's so funny because we always say the advice that you give other people is never the advice you would give yourself.
100%.
It's always like different for some reason, but it's so silly. Like if let's say like your boyfriend cheated on you.
Yeah.
If that happened to your friend, you'd be like, leave him, red flag, like get out of there, don't forgive him. But then I feel like if you're in that situation, it suddenly feels different or something.
I know. Like,
and you're like,
but like, how did it happen?
Yeah.
Like, you know.
Yeah. Or
bad.
even like when you don't win something or like you don't perform well in something, you're always like to someone else, don't worry, don't blame yourself.
You can only get better from there.
I always blame myself.
Yeah, it's so true. It's easier said than done. And like, even though we're aware of that, it's still really difficult to treat yourself the same way as you treat your friends. So I think from like doing the nannying thing and like not being in that corporate environment anymore has like, it's like a habit, I guess. Like you have to practice that to yourself every day. So it's been, very helpful. Because I do sometimes think like there has been moments where I'm like, oh, should I go back to corporate? Or I get a bit stressed when people like, you know, it's on LinkedIn, it's like, this person got promoted. This person got promoted. I'm like, oh no, what am I doing? But I think for me, I just find comfort in knowing that there is no timeline for anyone. And you can always do, like you have, like, yes, everyone says life is short, but at the same time, life is long if you are intentional with what you want to do. Life is definitely short if you're like going through the motions on autopilot. And I think that's, from what I could see at PwC, that's what I've seen. Because there's a lot of managers or seniors I spoke to and they're like, yeah, I never thought I'd make it to manager. And I'm like, then what are you still doing? He's like, the offer got like it got offered to me and therefore I stayed. And now it's been like a year down the track and I'm like, so I guess like they don't have the time to like stop and think and reflect on what they actually want to do with their life.
Yes. Yeah. I've heard that a lot with any kind of, I guess, just being in an industry or like being in corporate. It's that hustle culture and everything is so fast paced and high stress and you're like trying to just execute and get the next thing done and like make sure you hit your goals or I don't know, make sure that the team releases the next really good thing. And it's very rare that you actually do get time to reflect unless you actually set it for yourself. Yeah. And you like block it out and I don't know, even then when you're being told to reflect, it's hard, right? Yeah. You kind of need that time to soak and like even have a week or something. Yeah. So you've done nothing first and then you start thinking deep about life.
Yeah, exactly.
With nannying, what is nannying? How did you get into it? To me, it sounds like such a story kind of thing, like you read in books, like they're a nanny or like I see on TikTok, you're like this nanny of a super rich family and it looks amazing. So how do you get into that?
So basically, one of my best friends from high school, one of her friends, like she's a mother herself, but she has always done nannying all her life, or like babysitting even. And I always thought, like, even in high school, I was like, babysitting, that's like really scary. Like you're 18 or something, like younger than 18 and you're like looking after a child's life. Like that's really scary. So I never like even considered it back in high school. But I thought like, I'm more mature now. I've, gone through corporate life, like surely. So there was actually a Facebook group page, that you could join, and there's actually so many mothers out there who really need a nanny or a babysitter or an au pair, which is like you live in with them. Like they'll have a spare room, so kind of like the rich. They'll have a spare room and you can live in there, and they'll pay you like a weekly wage, but just to like help look after the kids. So yeah, I have like 2 kids that I look after, and they're both very lovely, and so are the parents, and it just ranges from like having fun with the kid or just doing like light tidying up or packing away the dishwasher. It's kind of just like normal things that you have to do if you moved out. So yeah.
Do you feel like being in that space and outside of the corporate world changes your perspective on life?
Oh yeah, it really does. I think it makes me think about what my priorities and my values are in life. I think for me, like I'm excited to have a family in the future, right? So yeah, I think it just really makes me think about my priorities. And I think for me that's an even more indicator that like corporate wasn't for me. Like I think I definitely still want to go back one day, because I do love to grow and learn, and then also pass that down, like coach others to do the same. I think it's always like the caring, the nurturing aspect that I like.
You've always been a people person. I feel like though that's literally the job of a manager, like a good manager. That's what you were meant to do. I think in our world, there's too many poor managers who probably are really good at what they do, but they're not good at managing people.
I have heard that so many times, like especially in the corporate environment as well. I realized the people who make it all the way to like partner, for example, it's like survival of the fittest. Like you have to really distinguish your emotions from your work. And therefore that might sometimes show like you don't care for your team. But I've noticed some managers who like really, really care for the team, but like because it's just too much on them in terms of work and caring for the team, that they leave for like a slower paced working environment. So it's just very interesting too.
And I think like all the pathway to become a manager is what doesn't help as well, right? Because you are good at your job, you get promoted, you keep getting promoted, and then you land in a manager position. But the skill set is so different. We're essentially pushing people who are good at one certain skill set and we're actually pulling them out of the thing that they're doing and making them manage a group of people. I don't know. There's something wrong there, but
because I think at the end of the day, like, yes, growing your team is important, but if to me, it's like as long as you're bringing revenue and business into the corporate environment, then that's what matters the most, is what I see.
It's a bit sad.
I know. So that's why it makes me uncomfortable, because I'm like, the people are your assets of the company, so you should really invest in them. If you really want them to stay, learn and grow and be happy in there, you should really invest in your employees.
I want you to be my manager.
I wish I was a manager.
But you're also spending a little bit more time doing social media and almost creating a little brand for yourself as well, right? So how's all that going?
Yes, with social media, it's been a journey. So I actually picked that up during COVID because I didn't have much to do during COVID, and like work was like relatively not as busy. And I had so many food pictures on my phone. So I was like, you know what, I might as well post this up. And I think I was inspired by other friends as well who had their own accounts. So it was really fun, because I think even since high school, I've always loved editing photos on like VSCO and Tumblr and everything. So I was always that kind of girl, but I just never thought like I could do that. I don't know why. It's so weird. Like in high school, I would follow people like Tara Milk Tea, but I would just admire it. But I don't know why I would have never thought like, oh, maybe I could do that, or like, you know, start posting those photos. I feel like if we did it ages ago, it would have been a lot easier now, because I think now the market's quite saturated. There's a lot of people doing it.
Yeah.
So I think it's just really hard to make a name out of yourself. So yes, I am doing branding, but I think I just overthink a lot in what I post.
I think the number of times people have told me over COVID, that's when they started social media, is crazy.
Yeah.
So I think you're right in that there's a lot, like it's become a lot more normalized to be a content creator. Like I suppose the influencer term, like everyone is an influencer these days, because everyone's got their own interests that they're posting about, and like they're growing their own followings. I think, like you said, before COVID, lots of people were doing it, there's this probably stigma around it where it felt like in order to be an influencer, you have to be a certain mold of person, and like
100%. That's so true, actually. That's a very good observation, because I think since COVID, because everyone just started joining it, like whether they're posting dances on TikToks or whatever, like they're just normal people. Like you can clearly see that they're normal people. So you feel, I guess, inspired to do the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And everyone can do it.
Yeah. Like anyone can. Like I have so many friends going like, oh, I really want to start posting my travel stuff. Like I have so many photos. I'm like, just do it.
Yeah.
But they never do.
The first step is always the hardest.
It is very hard. Yeah.
And how did you get started then? Like you had photos, you just went, all right, I'll just post them.
Yeah. I think I just started posting it. I think I looked at other people's profiles, see how they did it, like got inspiration, and then I was like, oh, this doesn't seem too difficult. Like you just post a photo, have like, obviously edit the photo a little bit, post it up, have a caption of like your true honest thoughts, and then that's how it started.
But I do think growing a community is quite hard. Like I've been doing this for 10 plus years and I haven't cracked the code. And I feel like all these new influencers have cracked some kind of code around like growing that community quickly.
I've been thinking about that a lot, yes.
But I feel like you've done quite well as well in terms of, you know, understanding how to quickly engage or like grow a community around you. So what did you feel like were some of those things that helped you in the past couple of years?
Yes. So I personally didn't think I had much of a community. I don't know. Maybe I'm comparing myself to like the bigger ones, you know. So that's not really realistic to me to think so. But I think definitely meeting people in the same space is quite helpful. I think especially in the foodie community, when I first started out, there was collaborations where there'll be like maybe 6 other foodie influencers, and then you just meet them, and because you know like a face to a name, they're more willing to also engage in your content, comment, like, and things like that. So I think that was also really helpful, like, you know, like networking as well when you're like in business or whatever.
Hey, networking.
I know. But I think at the same time, like even if you don't meet those people in person, it's just commenting on other people's profiles that you know will probably like comment back as well. I think that really helps. And like, for example, your profile looks so nice and so curated. It looks so friendly and warm. So I honestly feel like if you also engaged with people in a similar space as you would probably get the same comments back and like likes and things. But the tough part is just it takes a lot of time and energy.
Do you feel like this is something that you're trying to focus on to be like the next part of your career, or this is something you would keep as a side hobby, and then you like your next direction is to start looking at like what you do?
I have been thinking about that quite a bit, but I don't know. I feel like, you know, the term influencer sounds very scary. I don't know. I think because you're influencing people to obviously buy something or whatever. And I think I don't really have that. Like I have tried, but it's very difficult to. I think you need to, I don't know, curate like posts.
I think you need to be a bit shameless.
Yeah, maybe that's why.
I'm similar to you. I have a very strong discomfort of telling my friends to buy something or like getting them to spend their own hard-earned money on something if, for me, I'm like going to gain something out of it.
Yeah, exactly. But then at the same time, I think I just have to remind myself like creating this content takes a lot of time and energy and effort. Like like whenever I can, I'll be filming and then I have to edit that and then think about captions and the value that I'm bringing to the audience. So I think it's just like a tough balance. But yeah.
Oh, do you want to share your handle as well?
It's Life with JinJin.
And it changed recently.
Yeah, it used to be a Sydney cider.
Yeah.
I think it changed because a Sydney cider, I was like, oh, it's like, I always find Sydney home regardless of where I'll be. And I think I wanted it to be quite a generic handle. And I didn't want anyone to find out about me in the beginning.
Too late now. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's nice that you are bringing more of like a face to
I
your
think
like brand.
yeah, exactly. It
Yeah.
comes to branding. Because honestly, I realized that, yeah, people are not just going to follow you for, oh, do they? They do. Like that, I've been analyzing a lot. Like I know, I know they like, for example, if someone just only posts study vlogs and like stationery, a lot of people do follow and they might not show a face at all. But I think it's just like very aesthetic and very like calming to watch and maybe even inspirational in a way. It will motivate them to study. So I guess having a face to a page is not super important to gain a following, but I think it helps definitely in terms of influence.
So how will you determine like what you do next then after this?
Oh, yes. So I think, I don't know, have you heard of the term UGC? Yes. So that's what I'm more focusing on because I think for me, I love creating content and I love making videos. However, I realized I've been doing it for the past few years now, but I would prefer, it's okay, in terms of the foodie community, right? It's usually they're like free food in compensation for it. And it's really difficult to get paid for it unless you've got like 100,000 followers or more. So recently the rise of UGC, which is user generated content, brands are more willing to pay for those services. And I thought that was a much better way to go towards because I don't need to have a following. I don't need to have influence because I can just create that video for a brand.
Yeah.
And they can use it on their social media or paid advertisements and everything. So that's what I'm focusing on this year.
And if you can build that up enough, that's something that will help you become more sustainable in actually doing this as like your job.
Exactly.
Right?
Because I guess being an influencer is way too dependent on your followers, your comments, your likes. And that kind of stresses me out sometimes. Like, oh no, I'm losing these followers. Or oh no, I'm not getting enough in comparison to this person who's just gained like 2,000 for the past week. Like what, it's like.
It's so stressful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds, I don't think I would like that.
Yeah, exactly. So it's too hard, I think, as an influencer.
With the other things that you're exploring at the moment, for example, nannying, is that something that you would continue to do, or is that more of a, you're doing it right now in the
I think it's just a right now in the meantime.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think for me, I've realized I'm the kind of person who likes to do a lot of things. I'm just interested in too many things. And I can't pick and do all of them, right? I don't have much.
I think that is the story of all of our lives.
I just want to do so many things. And I think I'm just reminding myself, like, I have time. And if this is something I really want to do in the future, I could always do like a TAFE course in childcare and go into that.
Yeah.
If I wanted to. But for now, like, this is just more of like a side thing and it's fun.
Yeah. I think that that is generally the theme though of this stage in our lives is most people probably have a lot of interests and it's figuring out now which one of those do I want to invest my time as I get older and like because we have the time now, which of those do I want to really do properly and get better at? I have an analogy that I just like to use all the time.
Yeah.
And people who are friends with me will probably have heard this before already, but I always talk about, because I'm like you, I get distracted by a lot of things. I just want to do everything and I want to do everything well.
Yeah.
But there's this story or thing about like catching rabbits. And if you're trying to catch multiple rabbits at the same time, you're going to chase one rabbit and then you're going to see another one and you're going to try to catch that one. And that one's going to run away and you're going to try to catch another one. And like by by trying to catch multiple rabbits, you're actually going to catch none of them at all.
Yes, exactly.
But as soon as you start focusing, like the better tactic is focus on the single rabbit. And if you can get to that one instead, that's how you're going to attain like at least one rabbit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So all the time I'm telling myself like, which rabbit am I catching? But right now I'm still catching multiple rabbits.
But Rachel, you're like really good at multiple things though.
I've set multiple traps. I haven't caught a rabbit yet though. But I think it is, I think it's very relevant to how I guess we're both experiencing life right now.
Yeah.
And it's good that you've got kind of an idea of at least your priorities or where you're starting to focus.
Yeah. I think the difficult part is always like if it's the wrong decision. I think that's what scares me. Like to be honest, last year I always had UGC in the back of my mind, but for some reason, I don't know why, my brain wasn't like, do it. For some reason, I decided, like again, the algorithm and the internet and social media, I got this advertisement on like digital marketing and I was like, ooh, this sounds interesting. And they wrote really good copy. Like it's just very convincing, very like, do you want to change your life? And oh my gosh, like not that, like I think they were very convincing, but in a very personal way. And I thought this might be a very good avenue for me to take because then I can, write ads for clients.
Yeah.
And I thought it was great because it was a very small investment. I just had to pay to learn for the course. And then it was quite step by step. You had people coaching you. And I thought it would just be a really good skill to have because I realized in the future, like the top, I can't remember what exactly were, but like there's like 3 areas that are going to make the most money or like really great skills to have is like marketing because if you have a product and you don't know how to market it, no one's going to ever buy your product because you don't know how to market it, right?
Yep.
So marketing, obviously sales then and I forgot what the other one was, but yeah, it made me think about that, and that's why I invested in learning about digital marketing. But then when I had my first client, it was just really difficult because it was such a steep learning curve for me. And then I was like, oh my gosh, like why did I decide to invest in a totally brand new thing to learn when this is probably going to take me like a year or so? Like I should have focused on what my strengths were and what I knew. And yeah.
Did you enjoy it though? Like, do you think that's still a viable path that you might go down? Or like you were like, nah, I tried it, I didn't want to do it.
Yeah, I don't think so. I enjoyed learning it, but when I actually implemented it, I was like, this is really stressful because I think you had to like jump into calls and say like, and like really pitch yourself.
Yeah.
But then it's kind of like, oh, I'm new to this. So why am I pitching something I'm not so certain about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But with UGC, for example, I feel confident in creating videos. I feel confident about scripting. So that was more comforting.
You're just too good a person, I think. It's like this discomfort with selling or like deceiving other people into your skill set, and you want to be like really confident and good at that thing, and then you feel like you can provide value to other people, and that's when you want to engage.
Like when I actually believe it, I can't just do it if I don't believe it. I know a lot of people can, and maybe they are successful, but I personally can't.
I think like one of the things we hear all the time when we're starting out our careers, like people change careers so many times in their life, like 7 times on average or something like that. Would there have been any other career paths that you might have wanted to go down or like you may want to explore in the future?
I know so far since I've started working full-time a few years ago, there's always been like human capital consulting. Actually, there's too many.
Too many rabbits.
Because honestly, last year I was like, "Ooh, product management." That's what you do, right? I was like, UX design. Ooh, oh my god! I think it's because I've been watching YouTube videos, right? And it's like, no experience needed. This is what you should do. And I was like, I'm feeling inspired. But I realized it's not that easy.
I don't think anything is ever that easy.
No.
So was there anything else? What about when you were young, like when you were a kid, what did you want to do? Was that teaching?
I think it was actually just teaching or psychology.
Okay. Yeah.
But no. I think with teaching as well, for me, my thought was teaching is such a specific path. Maybe that would have been better for me. I don't know. But it's just like one role and that's your defined pathway. But if you do business, there's so many different types of business that you could enter. But I realized, with teaching, like I could always go back to it in the very far future, because like most of the teachers there are some young teachers, but there's also like really old teachers.
Yeah.
So, and I think having a professional experience beforehand helps a lot more in it. Maybe not necessarily primary school education, but like if you were a high school teacher, I think it's a lot better, because I think you can relate more real life examples to your students or something.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, at the end of the day, what we're doing is we're all just trying new things, right?
Yeah.
And learning and like figuring out. I actually wonder whether this is just going to be the rest of our lives. Like just doing something and trying to figure out, is this right for me, or should I do something else?
But honestly, I think I love that, because I think it's not easy going to a new path at all. And so when people do a 180 or like keep changing careers, I'm like, I have a lot of respect for you. Yeah. Because that's a really tough decision to make.
Yeah.
And you're doing what's right for you in that moment. And like, it might not work out, but at least you tried.
Yeah. How do you know though? How do you know when it's like, I'm going to change because it's the right move, or I'm going to change because I just don't like my situation right now, and like, I don't know, I don't want to face this particular challenge. Like, it's hard, right?
It's so hard. I know.
I think that's what holds people back from changing, because they're like, maybe I'll stick it out a little bit more and see, like, maybe this hump will get over. Like, I don't know.
I think I definitely agree. Because for me, I know is it like a mantra? I have no idea. But I think people don't like to try different things because they're not sure if it's right for them. But then you would never know unless you try. And I think when you try and then you realize it's not for me, then you just move on. And if it's like a big thing as like career, I feel like you could, if you ended things well, you could always return back, because you have had that knowledge and you've built that trust. And especially if you've left in a appropriate way, then you could always go back. Like, I feel like you can.
That is so true.
Yeah.
I feel like every time that I've done it a lot, but like every time that I've ended up leaving a company, they've always said to me, if it doesn't work out, you can come back. And people don't tell that to themselves enough, where it feels like if I'm making a decision, that's final, and I have to move on and like do the next thing. And if I mess up that next thing, it's over for me. But it never really is.
Yeah, exactly. So I think I find comfort in that.
Yeah.
That if I didn't burn any bridges, like I could always go back if I really wanted to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things I think you said earlier was this feeling of, I've done this thing for 3 years and now I'm starting again. So it feels like I've wasted my time. So how do you, I guess, get over that kind of thinking?
I think it was very difficult in the beginning, but I think I just had to remind myself that, I had a good time in the past 3 years at my job. Like, I learned a lot. I've grown a lot from it. I know what's right and wrong in terms of like working environments. I can take that away for my next job. And then I think I was just telling myself like what I really wanted. Like, for example, like I'm a person who likes a lot of things, right? So it's okay if I'm not a manager by now, like everyone else is, for example. So I think, and then I think I just like keep reminding myself of things like, it's never too late to change jobs. It's okay. I'm not having to need to follow someone else's career pathway. Everyone has their own lives, and it just depends on your priorities and your values. And I think I just tell myself that every day, every time negative thoughts happen. Because like recently I caught up with my old work friends and they're all getting like new jobs and everything. And then I just felt very out of place when I entered the dining table. I was just kind of like, oh man, like what am I doing? Like I just felt very out of it. But I think when I was like talking to them, I was like, you know what? No, this is like what I chose for myself, and this is what I wanted to do. And if I wanted to go back into the corporate life, it's fine. I can just do it later, and it's okay. As long as I am enjoying what I'm doing right now, then it's okay.
Yeah. I think it's the comparison is the thief of joy, right?
Yes.
It's so hard
Yeah.
to not compare yourself to other people when you're in that environment, especially, and seeing them day in, day out, and everyone's going on their like similar kind of paths. But it does feel like, from what I've heard, once you step out of that environment for a little bit, it just feels really freeing as well, because you're no longer in that headspace anymore of like, who's going to get the next promotion, or like, when am I going to get promoted as well? Or like,
that's true.
all that sort of stuff. It just becomes, this is my life. I've
Yeah.
made these decisions,
Exactly.
and this is what I'm doing.
Yeah, exactly. Like just finding power through those words. Yeah, literally.
I love that. I wish I could live that.
Yeah, it's so interesting, right? Because you're saying, because there's so many people who would tell me like, oh, I wish I could do what you do, but I'm like, then why don't you?
Yeah.
Like, why? What's stopping you?
It's true.
There's so many people tell me that, like, oh, I really want to quit my job, and I'm like, oh, why don't you? But obviously, it's not easy.
Yeah.
And for me, it took me almost 3 years to decide to do that.
Yeah.
And I think I just like, I always say like, it's in your own timeline, and when it suddenly clicks in your mind based on everything, maybe people telling you, social media telling you, or what you're experiencing at work, it'll just suddenly click for you.
I think like the more recent change that I've made is, it felt like a big decision as well, because not to such a dramatic extent, but I was taking, like, optically, they don't have the level of like senior in their title. So it felt like I was taking a step down, and then like also pay is not going to be as good. And so those kind of factors kind of had me thinking as well, like, should I make this change? Because it means that I almost feel like I need to start from another step and like work my way back up again. I don't necessarily think that that's the case, but there is that mindset in there. And like, if I just stayed where I am, even though maybe I'm not growing as quickly anymore, like from a corporate ladder sort of sense, I would be growing much faster and I'd be getting paid more and more and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I think there's always like those kind of micro moments where you do have somewhat of that decision to make.
Yeah. No.
And sometimes you just got to take that step and make it.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
You just got to do it.
Exactly. And I think at the end of the day, like if you've tried out your new job and it's not for you, you can always get back. Because I think what I realized, like there was this partner at PwC, and like they posted an article about her, but she started as a trainee and then like a grad, but then she moved to like a bank, and then she moved to like consulting, and she moved everywhere, and now she's finally a partner back at the same job she started off with, and I'm like, oh, full circle. So yeah,
but she's actually probably got a lot more experience and a lot of value to provide.
100%, 100%.
So I think that actually, if it is a decision between staying in something that you're doing and you've been doing it for a while versus like going out and doing something new, it's almost always better to do that something new, because like you said, you have something to come back to if you ended things well. Yeah. But you're also picking up experiences from different people and like different industries that you can reapply now without having just, the same, doing the motions for years and years. Yeah.
I think to me as well, like personally, like my own values is like getting out of your comfort zone. Like it's so comforting to be in that same environment, what you know from the people, your work, but you won't grow and learn as much if you're not jumping to a different company, learning how they're working, and like you learn different styles. You're like, oh, I actually really like this, or maybe you hate it, and then therefore you move on. Like I think you just learn more about yourself quickly as well.
What became harder after you made the career change? Like what kinds of sacrifices do you have to make though?
Sacrifices. Financially was a bit hard. Like when I finished corporate, I was like, oh, I worked so hard, so now I'm going to go traveling. And then from there, I feel like there was like the tiniest bit of regret. Like I had a lot of like very impulsive decisions. Like some of the holidays were planned, but one of them was like, it took a big chunk out of my money, and I was kind of like, what am I doing? I was like, no, it's okay. I'm just living.
Life is for living.
Yeah, life is for living. But I think I was just kind of like reminding myself, like, I'll make back the money. It's okay. And like it's not like I'm not working at all. Like I'm definitely still working. And I think I'm also grateful that my mom's very supportive of me. Because I thought it would be really bad, like having an Asian mom and everything. But no, I think she just saw how mentally difficult it was for me, that she understood.
Yep.
So yes, it's been okay.
That's good. Like, I think a lot of people have that fear because they're thinking about the downsides only. And we talked about a lot of the upsides, but I think you as well reflecting on those, you do have to cop some sacrifices, but they're workable and they're worth it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think, yes, I've made some really risky decisions, but at the same time, I'm really pushing to like still be responsible. So, you know, like every time I get paid, then a bit of it will definitely always go to savings or investments or something. You know, I'm not just like burning away all my money.
Just having fun.
Yeah, just having fun. Like I'm showing us social media is just a highlight reel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think that's really good. Like, do it in a responsible way.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And you're thinking about the bigger picture as well.
Yeah.
It's not about the next few years trying to get to the highest level that you can in your company, like get the biggest promos kind of thing. But it's actually thinking about what you want to take out of your life and like what you want to be doing.
Yeah.
And I suppose now is like the time you're investing towards that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you get to that point where you feel like I'm comfortable and I've made it now, that's going to be so much better than if you had stayed and you got to partner and you weren't happy still.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe last question then. What's your plan for 2024? What are your 2024 goals?
2024 goals. So originally, I would have wanted to move overseas. I think that's been a big thing on my mind for a while. But I think I'm focusing on like the business side, like the UGC, and working on that for this year, like get that set up, and then you can take that business anywhere. So yeah, hopefully next year will be like moving and living overseas. Because it's going to be more difficult to do that later on when I'm older. Because I want to, like, you know, when I reach 30 onwards, right, I want to be settled down in Sydney.
Yeah. It's so funny. Everyone right now our age is either career change or travel, like live overseas for a couple of years.
Yes. So
it's
many
that
people.
time in our lives.
It really is. And like, because I think I really wanted to move this year because I was like, oh, I'm not getting any younger. And it's even difficult as a female, right? Because we have a body clock and everything.
Yes.
So yeah, but then there's like other people a bit like a year or 2 years older and they've like moved. So I was like, okay, it's not too late yet.
It's not. It's never too late. That's what we got to tell ourselves.
Yes.
It's only too late if we start holding ourselves to a standard that life should be lived.
Oh yes, 100%.
Yeah.
I definitely agree.
Apart from the body clock.
Yeah, I was like, that's not too late.
Yeah, we can't do anything about that. Awesome.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today, JinJin. It was so good to hear about what you're doing in your career and in your life. I think having a better perspective on just life in general is so good.
Yes.
Yeah. And thanks so much for everyone else for joining us. Remember to tune in every Wednesday. I think I'm actually going to change the cadence of this, so it might not be every Wednesday anymore. But remember to tune in next time for the sugar, the spice, and everything that's nice in life. And we'll see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.